Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
One of my upper-level finance classes in college had a big community service component where we would act as financial advisors for underprivileged adults for free. Organization and outreach was always a big problem, so the class was actually split into a real class component and an extracurricular club component. Basically, you could either join the class, get credit but do a lot more research paperwork effort, or join the club, have a resume builder but just do volunteer activities administration. This way, more people could help out with varying levels of effort. I had originally joined the club as it was my freshman year, and I didn't have the prerequisites to join the class, but I was very dedicated, so my professor made an exception for me. At the beginning of the semester, we were assigned a group and a local family to work with for the duration of the class. Essentially, we had to interview the family several times and work with them to produce a 20-page comprehensive business plan for them that would count as our final exam grade. My group consisted of Grace, a junior who was only part of the club and just helping us out if she had time, and Kelsey, a senior who is the main antagonist of this story. Kelsey was extremely entitled and clearly had a severe case of senioritis. The class met twice a week, but she showed up to it so few times that when I mentioned she was my groupmate near the end of the semester, no one even knew who she was. She told everyone that she was sick all the time, but somehow that didn't go away the entire semester. It wasn't just the class either. She only showed up to one interview with the family and ran the whole interview like she was the expert on their case. When she was with me, she would talk about all the things she was planning on doing for the group, but she would never actually do anything. Halfway through the semester, when we showed our family the beginnings of our paper, she presented our plan to the family like she had come up with it, even though I wrote 8 pages. Grace had helped with just under a page, and Kelsey wrote one short introductory paragraph. I really would have dealt with Kelsey's antics if she had been your typical senior slacker that avoided the spotlight. But taking my work and naming it as her own really pissed me off. She very clearly thought that I was some shy freshman that would never stand up to a big cool senior like her. Fortunately, I had suggested that we write our paper on a Google Doc, a way that we could all edit the same paper online without having to meet up or email it back and forth. Google Docs also track the individual edits that every person makes to the paper. This was a capability that Kelsey was not aware of. For the rest of the semester, I played it cool with Kelsey. I went along when she said she would do her work and acted as your average group member that trusted that she would do her share. Grace helped check over what I had written, but ultimately had to focus on her actual exams and left the project to me and Kelsey. The weekend of the due date, Kelsey had still not touched the paper since she wrote her one paragraph. So I texted her a few times asking if she was planning on working on it. No response. I wrote several more pages and waited until the night, before the paper was due. I texted her one last time, still no response. At this point, if she had worked from when I texted her to when the paper was due, she could still not match the time I had put in, and she had no interview notes to even write about it. I sent an email to my professor explaining that Kelsey had deserted me. I could prove very clearly she had written only one paragraph, and I would need an extension if I was going to finish the paper. A few hours later, I received an email from my professor saying she would take care of it and to come into her office the next day. The following morning, due day, while I was in another class, I started getting texts from Kelsey, then calls, more texts. I walked back home from class slowly so she would marinate in stress. Then, I called her back. She started out saying there must have been a mistake because it seems our professor thought she had only written one paragraph of our paper. I told her that yes, I had explained that I needed more time to do all the work she was supposed to have done. She claimed that I was being ridiculous and she had definitely written way more than one paragraph. I calmly explained that I was looking at the Google Doc edit history and she had definitely written one paragraph. She grew audibly more hysterical and started accusing me of tattling on her like a child, and I told her that there would be nothing to tattle on if she had done the work. Then she started screaming about how I was targeting her and I should be mad at Grace too. That's right. She showed up so few times she was not aware that Grace was only a volunteer club member and didn't have to write the paper. She really thought I wouldn't be able to tell her writing from Grace's and she could pretend she had written more. Finally, she went off the rails shouting something about how she had actually written 5 pages on another document that she was unable to actually produce, and that she didn't even need this course anyway, among other crazy accusations. I told her that I had said all I needed to say. She wasn't going to touch my paper, and that if she didn't need the grade, she should be okay with failing, and hung up on her. I went to my professor's office and clearly proved the paper belonged to me with Grace's assistance. I could see Kelsey editing the document, trying to steal what I had written, but that was stopped by a strongly worded email from my professor. I got a bit of extra time and ultimately received an A. Kelsey never showed up to class again. I work for a family business with 30 employees. This is a company that has friends and family members as top-tiered management and often made up rules whenever they felt like it. When new employees join the company, they sign a basic employment contract stating the compensation, benefits, and work hours. The company does not have a written code of conduct. One particular manager is a friend of the president. Let's call her Sally. Sally manages a team of 8 employees, including myself. We aren't allowed to make small talk while working, and we are required to let her know when we start taking our breaks. And when we return from breaks, Sally interjects whenever a team member is asking another member some questions because Sally is a micromanager. Sally also makes us come to work early once a week for 30 minutes unpaid, so that she can recap the previous week, and often uses this time to tell us what we're doing wrong. She made it clear that this weekly meeting is mandatory. During one meeting, she brought up expectations for continued employment at the workplace. No swearing, no talking bad about customers amongst ourselves, no personal phones on desks, no music during work hours, no talking to other departments unless it's work-related. Then she brought up dress code. It's important to note that we've never heard of a dress code at work, and our jobs do not require face-to-face interactions with customers. Most of our dealings are via phones or emails. We may see a customer drop by once or twice a year. Most of the team members wear hoodies, long-sleeved t-shirts with jeans or leggings. I usually wear a simple top with pants with my hair neatly blow-dried. Apparently, that's not appropriate enough. Sally said we should try to dress better and more professionally to keep up with the company's image. Her sell was dressed not for the job you have, but the job you want. She made us all sign a document citing the topic of discussion at the meeting. You want us to dress for the job we want? Okay. A few of my colleagues and I decided to maliciously comply the following day. I put my hair in a messy bun, wore my Costco leggings, and my husband's old t-shirt. That was my everyday look when I was unemployed. Sally saw me when I walked through the door and asked why I was underdressed. I said, "You asked us to dress for the job I want. I want to go back to being a stay-at-home mom. I love staying at home." She said, "That's not what I meant. I meant bigger aspirations and goals," as she looked at me with exasperation. Shortly after, my other colleagues showed up one after the other, 2 wearing full workout gear and 1 wore her anime costume. One guy wore a t-shirt with expletives. The president noticed and asked us if Halloween came early, and we told him what Sally said. I don't know what happened, but safe to say, there was no mention of any dress code since. Note that, like many tales here, many trivial to the story's details have been changed. What is important to note is that the way my industry runs is essentially via monthly service contracts with clients. There are 3 major players in the story. Myself, Egnards, old owner, let's call him Steve, and new owner, let's call him Kyle. Act 1. Do what you love. As an aimless teenager, I started working for a small business owned by Steve. It turns out I really enjoyed what I did, so slowly over time my life plan shifted to make sure I could continue to work for Steve for the long term. This included transferring to a local college, and because the business was predominantly run on part-time hours, making sure that any other jobs I had never conflicted with the hours I was expected to work for Steve. Steve was flawed, but overall a good boss who mostly looked out for me. I certainly think over the years he had taken advantage of me in small ways, but looking back, I really have no complaints. The thing is, when I started working for Steve, the business's name recognitions was always directed towards Steve. Over the years, it eventually became, "Go to Egnards. He's the best." This got to the point where I do indeed truly believe that if I did not end up working for Steve, it's very likely his business would have been nowhere near as successful as it eventually became. As years went on, it was heavily implied that when Steve retired, the business would go to me. It was never specifically stated, but Steve did have a way about skirting around those types of issues and giving me hope. Act 2. Enter Kyle. About 3 years before COVID, Steve decided to retire and sell his business. He did indeed fulfill his promises by making a half-assed attempt to sell it to me at an unreasonable price. But it was very clear he already had another buyer in mind, Kyle. Kyle owned another local business just outside of our market area in the same industry. Because of the way the industry worked, there really was much, if any, overlap in potential customers, but Kyle had a very large amount of money and was willing to buy it. What is important to note here is that, again, I do truly believe that if I didn't play ball and agree to work for Kyle, my role was so integral to operation at our business that there is no possible way a sale could go through. Over the course of negotiations, Kyle ended up buying the business and putting me in charge of running the day-to-day. Something I was mostly already doing, but with a few more administrative tasks tacked onto it. The thing is, my name was still the name in town, and Kyle made zero effort to ever be on location. So nobody that did business with us ever really knew who Kyle was. Act 3. Kyle's kind of a jerk, and how I learned to stand up for myself. All was well for a while. Kyle would openly talk about me being the head honcho at my location and mostly left me alone to deal with my clients in the professional and personable nature that I had learned from Steve. Things first came to a head a year before COVID when Kyle sent me to an industry conference for 4 days. I would need to take off time from my other job, which I was fine with. At the conclusion of the conference, I put in an hour's request for the hours I spent at the conference, and I was super nice about it. Actually, I should have clocked all hours at the convention each day, but instead did not account for hours for seminars that would help my boss but were ones I had wanted to attend. The request was denied, and I was told, industry conferences are enriching activities. We pay for your admission, but they're on your own time. This took 2 weeks to resolve, but ended with me essentially saying, look, I'll still work for you because I love what I do. However, if I don't get paid it, we'll never go to another one of these conferences again to get new ideas for you. I was immediately paid. I will spare similar smaller stories of that nature, but that slowly started to become the relationship between Kyle and I. Act 4. COVID hits. When COVID hit, our locations were shut down, and for 3 weeks we weren't able to do anything. Meanwhile, our clients were still paying for services, and because Kyle had recently moved to a new client payment portal that I hadn't been trained on yet, I wasn't able to help any clients get their money back. At one point, I messaged Kyle about going virtual and being able to still assist clients and got a very angry text back, full of curses that essentially said, look, you're not the boss. Go get lost. You had your chance to be the owner and turned it down. I'm in charge? We did eventually go virtual about a week later. The big problem, of course, being that I would receive daily texts, emails, calls from clients about their memberships, bills, and there was nothing I could do to help them. It was at this point that I knew crap was hitting the fan and I needed to start doing something. So over the course of the next 2 months, I did a couple things. I spent an inordinate amount of time studying the best business structures, communicated with all of the other staff at my location about my intentions, continued to give 110 to my clients in a virtual capacity, built a website and social media presence from the ground up. I don't think Kyle was expecting any of this, and he probably didn't also realize that because I often had to do back-end stuff from home. I also had what was essentially a little black book of every client, their email addresses and phone number. Act 5. Surgical strikes. When everything was ready, I waited very patiently until the end of a service month. As I mentioned, all of our clients had monthly costs, and I didn't want to put anyone out of any part of their costs. On the last weekday of the month, I instructed the staff who would be helping clients that day to tell them to check their emails at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I sent out an email to all active and some non-active clients, as well as a texting service to text everybody. I launched our social media accounts, our website, and had even enlisted a very small amount of trusted clients to spread the word via social media once I gave them the signal. Within 15 minutes of everything, my phone was ringing off the hook. I had 50s emails in my inbox from different people, and my Facebook accounts were completely blowing up with local chatter. I also heard from many of these people that they were calling Kyle to cancel their service. We hosted a Zoom meeting for all concerned parties and essentially decided to take the weekend to clear up any confusion with the systems and start fresh and open our doors on Monday. Within an hour of everything, Kyle sent out a text blast to every client that they would be shutting their doors effective immediately. At the start of COVID, we had roughly 50 active clients at the business. On my first day of business, I had signed up 75 active clients, many inactive ones telling me, yeah, we stopped doing business with you guys because Kyle was kind of a jerk. What is really important to keep in mind here is that I never wanted to, nor cared to be, a business owner. I was very happy working for somebody else as long as I wasn't treated badly. Had Kyle treated me even remotely better, the location would have continued to thrive and be a staple in our local community. Kyle chose to be a jerk to try and get quick money and cheat people, and Kyle lost out. We've been in business now almost 2 years, have nearly tripled Kyle's active numbers, and continue to be a staple in our community.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.